So today is the 22nd of August 2022, and my name is Adekunle from the University of York, and it is my great pleasure to have Professor Adekunle Adeyeye at the University of Durham. We've been known each other for many years since you graduated from Tony Bland's group in the Cavendish lab in Cambridge, and we've probably known with each other over 20 years. So it is my really great honor to have you to this ad hoc oral history interviews. So I would like to welcome you and thank you for agreeing to be interviewed for this oral history project. So we will begin by talking about your early life and education. So first of all, about your family and life. So please state your full name and the date of birth and the birthplace.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adekunle, for coming down to Durham to conduct this interview. My name is Adekunle Adeyeye, and I was born on the 1st of May 1968 in a town called Ibayi in Nigeria, which is West Africa.
Okay, so tell us about your childhood, what you are interested in, and how was your daily life looks like, and any hobbies or extracurricular activities.
Okay. I grew up actually in Nigeria, and like every little child growing up, I did everything that a child of my age would do. But I love playing football and table tennis, and I used to play. That was my hobby then. I also did, when growing up, I did a little bit of farming, because where I grew up, there are a lot of lands which are fertile land, and I used to cultivate land then. So that will summarize my early childhood. I played a lot, and I didn't take things too seriously then.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And what do you want to be? What do you really want to become when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Yeah, growing up in those days then, your interest changed with time. One minute you want to be a doctor, the other minute you want to be an engineer. But I knew then I was interested in science. And when I was in my secondary school, I knew that I wanted to do something in the area of engineering or mathematics. And this was partly due to the influence of my teachers then, because most of the people who taught me then, they had engineering background, and I was encouraged then. But things changed with time.
Okay. Yes, of course. Thank you. So, when and why you are become interested in pursuing physics particularly?
Okay. So my interest in physics, actually in my undergraduate days, in my early secondary school days, you have to take about 7 or 8 subjects. Of course, English, mathematics, but I was interested in sciences then, physics, because I love mathematics then. And my interest in physics grew with time, because in those days, the way physics was taught was not so encouraging. You can't feel it. Most of the time, you just have to, it was too abstract. But because I was interested, I persevered. And my interest in physics grew with time, and when I got to the university, I decided by accident to actually focus on physics. It wasn't my intention initially, but I'm glad I did, because that changed my life. Yeah.
Do you have any particular subject or area in physics you are interested in?
Oh yes, actually again with time, I was interested in general relativity and so on, looking at various things from different frame of reference. And I loved those things then because you could relate with it. But over time, actually in my undergraduate days, my interest was more on ionospheric physics, looking at radio wave communication in the ionosphere. My undergraduate dissertation was in that area because I was looking at phenomenal called scintillation using NASA data to really look at the occurrence in the atmosphere. So my interest was not necessarily in what I'm doing now then, but like I said, it changed with time.
Okay, so you talked about your math teacher partially influenced your career. Are there any other person who are particularly like a mentor for your life?
Yeah, at different period of my time, I've really been fortunate to be influenced by people. In my university days, so again, there was one math professor who studied in Russia, and I love the way he taught us then, because most of the time he taught us things from first principle. So, and that has been imbibed in me that a lot of things I do now, I want to learn from first principle instead of memorizing. So his name was Professor Opola, and I admire the way he taught me then. But over time, at different points in time, I've either been influenced by one person or the other. And so, yeah.
Thank you. And then you came to the UK to continue your studies. So what motivated you to continue your study?
Okay. So I will answer this going back a little bit first, because first of all, you asked before what determined my major. In Nigeria, when you finish your secondary school, you need to do an entrance examination. And depending on what you want to study, if you want to study medicine, you need to do physics, chemistry, biology. If you want to study engineering, you need to do physics, chemistry, mathematics, and English is general. And depending on the subject you take during that exam and the mark you obtain, that will determine the university you go. So, like I said before, when I was growing up, my interest changed. Because I did well in my secondary school, often at times in those days, you don't have a choice of your career, family decide at time. So even though I was interested in engineering, I was asked, would you like to consider medicine? So initially, I actually started trying to do medicine. I did the entrance exam for physics, chemistry, biology. So when I entered the university, the first course they gave to me was zoology, which is the study of animals. And I started, after a few months, I didn't like it. I decided I'm not interested in medicine. Then that's how I ended up going back to physics. Because I did physics in my entrance exam, and I did well, physics department took me. And after, even though they've done all the, because by the time I joined was a few months later, I had to learn a lot of things on my own. I still did very well. I was the top in the class then. So a year later, I wanted to change to engineering. Physics said, no, they couldn't release me. And I think that was the best decision because I enjoyed physics after that. Yeah. So now, how I get to do, come to Cavendish Lab was, at the end, in the old university that time, there were 2 first class in over out of thousands. And so the university nominated me for a Commonwealth scholarship. And when I look at the courses I wanted to do, I was still interested in physics. So I decided to do microelectronics engineering and semiconductor physics, which is a course that is conducted between engineering, material science, and Cavendish laboratory, which is in physics. So that's how I ended up being in physics. So it was through my going to do microelectronics engineering and semiconductor physics. And during the microelectronics and semiconductor physics, you are exposed to various technologies, from semiconductor up to electronics, display system and so on. We did 14 courses. Based on that, I then chose an area of my interest because you also need to do a bit of mini project. So that's how I ended up being in Cavendish. It was through the scholarship I obtained. It was for 1 year, but after 1 year, I got another scholarship to continue towards a PhD.
I think at that time, there were many nice groups, especially microelectronics, semiconductor physics, and PCS, physics, chemistry,
of
solids.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you select particular subject for your PhD study?
Thank you. What happened is, as part of the MPhil, I think there were about 14 of us in the class then. As part of the MPhil program, every student needs to take a project. So, based on the list of projects, which is application of microelectronics or nanotechnology to a particular field. So when I saw this area of microelectronic application to spintronics, I decided to give it a try. And that time I was looking for ways to create nanostructure out of epitaxial growth film. So it was, I did a project for a few months, and the project was successful. That's what led to me continuing towards a PhD. Yeah.
Okay. So you had nice time with Tony, I guess.
Yes, you can say that. I mean, he encouraged me to start, and also one of the things with Tony then is he gave the student freedom to pursue their own interests. So I was given the freedom, and I liked the project then because it was an interdisciplinary project between microelectronics and physics and chemistry of solids, in this case magnetism. So I had to know both sides of the research, yeah.
I think when you started your PhD, Tony's group was increasing the number of people.
Right.
And when I joined, it was about 30 people. So how was the atmosphere or environment?
When we first started, when it was quite small people, it was quite collegiate and people worked together then. And because every student was given the freedom, there was not much funding, but we all know how to go to workshop to make things happen. So what I would say the dynamics then was quite good, because most of my mates then were still friends today. Some of them are no longer in magnetism, but those of them in magnetism were still friends today, and those friends stem from our time in Tony's group. But by the time I finished, Tony's group is well known. A lot of people came back in, including you then, and I don't know what happened. I mean, with time, with size, probably the dynamic is a little bit different, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, when you were doing PhD study, did you take any part-time jobs or any other activities outside your study?
Oh, absolutely, yes. PhD will be boring if I just go into the lab. So most of the time, I actually play football. I play table tennis. I used to play football for Trinity College graduate student, and we used to travel around. I used to play badminton too, badminton and table tennis. And for table tennis, we even traveled to France then. So I work hard and I play hard. So most of the time during the day, I play, but at night when everyone is sleeping, I've gone to the lab. The strategy is, at night, nobody is competing for me on the use of equipment. So I can just have my fun in the lab, and by 6 a.m. or so, I'm back in my college doing various activities there. Yeah, so I enjoy my time. And I was also involved in student leadership in terms of people from Africa then. Yeah.
Excellent. And I know you've been working very hard over the time. And are there any particular professors or lecturers you got influenced by during your PhD? Maybe apart from Tony.
Oh yes, my other supervisor was Professor Arun Ahmed, who is well known in the field of microelectronics. He actually encouraged me a lot, because in those days when there are challenges, he will call me in and say, just persevere. Because when you're doing PhD, things don't work the way you want to. And also, for somebody from overseas, working at the end or at the high end of technology, it was challenging. So Professor Arun Ahmed was one of the people who influenced me and even encouraged me to stay on for a PhD there. Yeah. He is now probably retired. He went on to become the Master of Churchill College in Cambridge. Yeah.
yeah, he was, I do remember he was a very big fan
Yeah.
of cricket. So
Yeah, that's right. It's from Pakistan initially, yeah.
so he didn't manage you to play for his team?
No, because I'm not good with cricket, but if it's football or something, yeah, different, yeah.
Good. I think you were elected as a junior research fellow at Trinity College in 1996. So how did this happen?
Yeah, being elected as a junior research fellow was a big thing then because it was a global type of competition in which case you have to submit a thesis, a dissertation which will be evaluated internationally. And in those days, I think they elect about 4 or 5 students then. And once you are elected, your life was transformed. I think it's based on merit on the output of your PhD. So they encourage early researchers or people who are about to finish their PhD to apply. And when you apply, if you are shortlisted, you are asked to submit a full thesis. And I was fortunate because I was working in an area which was new, and I was also able to get some interesting results at that early stage in my career. So combined with this helped me a lot when I put my thesis together. I was elected and I was quite happy. And that actually transformed or changed my trajectory because I was thinking of doing something different before, but now that helped me a lot, yeah.
So was it kind of triggered you to stay in academia?
A little bit, because what happened is, as a junior research fellow, you are given the opportunity to do anything you want to do. There's nobody to supervise you, and so you can try out things. They also give you the opportunity to explore outside, and you are paid more or less to do what you like to do. So it was a dream job for me then, and that was quite useful. I'm grateful I got that time. Yeah.
So what was the most enjoyable part of your project?
Oh yeah, so because I was working in the areas, the application of nanotechnology in spectronics, that time in the early 90s, nanotechnology is booming, developing. Everyone was talking nano iPod, nano this. But at that time in the area of magnetism, it was not that developed, partly because application of nanotechnology in magnetism is a bit tricky. If you want to make nanostructure, you want to also preserve the integrity of your film. And if you're working on epitaxial film, most of the processes are not compatible. So my early part of the project is to develop approaches to be able to pattern magnetic nanostructure, especially epitaxial film. So I was in demand then because various labs would come to work with us because of what we were able to do at that time. Yeah. So I find it interesting and enjoyable because if you're able to do things which people say is difficult, even though it wasn't that difficult, people think you're good. Yeah.
I think you are one of the pioneers to make nanostructured magnetic devices or magnetic structures, and I do remember at that time David Haskell and some other people who are developing the electron beam lithography as well. So how did you also involve any technological development part of this nano?
Yeah, well, it's only much later in my career because at that time we filed some invention that time, but I didn't pursue it because I left Cambridge after some time. But that time it was quite interesting because you have to work with different people. Even though electron beam lithography is developed, what is more challenging is the process of pattern transfer. And because I wasn't keen on technology development, there are a lot of things now that when I look at, if I pursue, that will probably lead to something completely different because my trajectory that time was different. Yeah.
Thank you. So you said you moved to Singapore after finishing your research career. Well, not the research career, but the study in Cambridge. So how did you choose to go to Singapore?
Okay. Actually, I would say that there was alignment of various things. If you remember, in the mid-1990, Singapore used to be the largest producer of computer hard disk. A lot of manufacturing companies, they moved their base to Singapore, but their R&D was still based in the US. So the government of Singapore then decided that they wanted to set up R&D up. So they traveled around and they tried to recruit. So I was recruited in London then to go and help out in the newly formed Data Storage Institute. Again, I see it as an opportunity to do something different, and my fellowship at Trinity College allows me to do that, because part of the idea with the fellowship is you're allowed to do anything you want, and if you want, you can take time out. So I decided to take time out to reflect and see what I wanted to do, and that was my connection to Singapore then. But I only stayed for about 9 months. I came back to start my fellowship. But because of my initial interaction in Singapore, when there was a faculty position that was available in 1999, I was invited. So I went to Singapore, I competed for the position, and I was appointed as an assistant professor then in 2000, and I walked through the rank, got my tenure in 2006, and my full professor in 2012. And I thought I would go to Singapore for just 3 years. I ended up staying for more than 20 years in Singapore. Yeah.
So could you tell us what's the difference between the, especially in research, between the UK and Singapore?
Okay. When I joined my university in Singapore, for example, the university was still teaching focused, but they were moving from teaching to research intensive institution then. And they went all out. So one difference is the funding landscape is completely different, and decision-making process is also quite easier. So from writing a proposal to getting funded, and once the funding is released, they cut through all the bureaucratic thing, because what is more important in Singapore is more of the output that you produce eventually. So they reduce a lot of paperwork and so on. Yeah. So there are a lot of good things about the UK system, but there are a lot of good things about the Singapore system too. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. And I know you've been producing many papers and nice keynote and invited talks. So how did you establish your own research group in Singapore?
Thank you for asking this. And often at times it's not that easy, especially for young faculty when you are just starting. There are competing demands. For example, you need to establish your teaching, you need to build your research career, and also they begin to ask you to do administrative things too. So it was challenging the first 2 years for me, because I had to develop my teaching career, but at the same time, I had to begin to have my own research signature. My approach was to leverage on what I know, to slowly build on what I don't know. Because I know a lot of things about nanostructure, I started from there. But instead of just focusing on making things, I went into instrumentation, I went into theoretical modeling. So within 3 years, things begin to happen. Slowly but steadily, I begin to gain recognition, I begin to get large grants, bringing people together and so on. But it's anchored on the competency in the area of magnetic nanostructure, and I was able to extend it to different aspects, new field. Because it's difficult to get funding if you are just writing a proposal on an area you don't know at all. You have to leverage on your expertise and then move things forward. And what I did was leverage, because in those days, they were talking of the effect of, as you scale down bit size, you get to a stage whereby superparamagnetic limit is reached. And one of the things that we're being talked about then is development of pattern media. And pattern media is magnetic nanostructure. So I was able to start project on pattern media. Companies were also interested in it and in its outcome then. Of course, people working in media will know that there are other ways in which you can increase the density and those parts are developed more than the area of pattern media, but you were also able to switch into other things later, like my last research there, which is in the area of magnonics and so on. Yeah.
So you came back to high frequency.
That's right.
You are interested in.
Yeah.
So how was the interactions with the industrial partners, for example, through Data Storage Institute or A-Star?
Okay. Yes, we had opportunity to interact directly with people in industry through the data storage, partly because it was encouraged. Also, there are incentives for companies to work with us. And later, to write a big proposal, you need to get companies to be involved. Either they will donate in kind or they contribute in some form. One of the ways in which we also get companies involved is they develop what we call industrial PhD, whereby students work in industry, but they do PhD in the university, and you have to have both industry supervisor and university supervisor. So there were many avenues for us to collaborate or work with industry. Yeah, and the university make it so easy that the issue of invention and so on was able to sort out using research collaborative agreement.
So sometimes people find it difficult to have non-disclosure agreement and so on. So did you find anything difficult to have PhD students? For example, they may sometimes not allow to present their results at the conference and so on.
Yes, actually what happened is the pathways to the industrial PhD is slightly different because they are not just evaluated based on their the research output, like through publication. There are times some aspect of it in which you sign a non-disclosure, you see what is going on, but it's quite frustrating at times, and at some point I also was hesitant to work with industry, especially if there's no alignment between university requirement, because university require you to produce output, and if you can't publish, you can't tell the university that, oh, I can't publish, just believe me. They need to see output. So it's a balance. So there are some work which I do, which I don't work with industry, but there are some which I try to work with industry. Yeah.
So what was the most beneficial part or most beneficial things you had through the industrial collaboration?
Yeah, I guess through the industry collaboration, my last grant, which I was able to bring people from different units together. Without the industry participation, it wouldn't have been possible. This was the big grant of close to 10 million Singapore dollars, whereby you have to bring people from different units. Nobody wants to invest in such money, in such project, if they don't know there is potential for it. Bringing people from industry together help us a lot. Even though the technology is still not well developed yet, they believe in it to say that in case you get the right output, we are going to support you and so on. Yeah.
That's very good. So thank you. And so regarding your magnonics project, so what would be the final goal or aim you want to achieve? Okay.
Actually, the issue of magnonics was just a low-hanging fruit that came about. We all know that the field of photonics was well developed. So when we started thinking of what next, we look at, is there a magnetic analog of photonics? And that's how the whole process started. And you can dream. We look at what is possible, and based on the initial back of the envelope calculation, say, oh, it's possible. You can actually have band gap. You can do certain things. In fact, the first experiment that we did worked, where we demonstrated band gap that is tunable. So in terms of the long-term aim is to be able to make low-power type of devices. There are still various challenges, which is what makes it interesting. Because once you solve all those challenges, you are no longer needed. It's the industry that will take over. So the challenge is, you need to, there are engineering challenge, material challenge, and device physics challenge. And different people around the world, they are working with it. For those who are listening, there are new review articles on roadmap to magnonics and also the recent one, spin wave computing. Because the notion of spin wave is well known for some time, but there's convergence now. For example, some of the material before that, lithium ion garnet, which is a low damping material, which is quite good, you have to make it very thin, and it's not compatible with CMOS. So we're looking for ways to be able to break that, because you can, it doesn't mean that magnonics will replace CMOS completely, but it will complement some of the functions. So neuromorphic computing, various aspects of this. So I hope that in the next 2 or 3 years, there will be some major breakthrough. Already there are low-hanging fruit. You can use this magnonic crystal for filter, microwave filter already. So there are markets for that already. And you can shrink it and so on. So for me, some of what we're trying to do now is to try and see how we can, because some things we've demonstrated in the lab, but the material we use will not be compatible with industry in terms of scaling. So transferring some of those ideas now, because we've shown that we can modulate, we can manipulate, we can get spin wave device. The key thing is, are you using the right materials? So we're looking at materials which will allow spin wave to propagate over a long period. So we're quite optimistic, and as everyone is talking about low power device, magnetics also have a part to play in it. Yeah. So I'm very, very excited and optimistic. Yeah.
Thank you. So you are working on the materials development?
Absolutely, yeah. But we have to work with other people too. We don't know it. Also, a lot of our work, which is quite interesting, is you have to talk to material scientists, people in engineering, and physicists too. So we are working together on some aspect, and I have various people I'm collaborating with on different aspects in terms of new materials, and also how to actually transmit information, because you need to have the way in which you design. So for example now, looking at, without going into too much technicality, because when spin wave propagate, they are propagate in different ways, depending on the direction of magnetization relative to the wave vector. And some geometry, the challenge is they're not compatible with device. If you have to make them into device, it will be bulky because you need to integrate magnet. But if you can find a way for not doing that, which is some of what we are doing now, which we are excited, you bypass that, you can make nanoscale type of devices which are scalable. Yeah.
So you mentioned about your very broad collaboration. So are there any difficulties, or how you would give advice for the early career researchers to start any collaborations, and how you did make it successful?
Okay, so the collaboration, there has to be value proposition from both sides. And often at times, if you are collaborating with somebody with the same expertise as you, then you don't value add. So a lot of the time, through the IEEE Magnetic Society conference and so on, when I go to conference, I listen to talks. If I like something, if I can leverage, I discuss, and at times we can start with something small. So a lot of my collaborators, they are also friends. We are friends first before collaborating. We meet at conference and then we become friends. So we can, at times it takes 2 years before you get the first output. We'll discuss generally and we can talk freely. We can exchange ideas, because collaboration also involves trust. There are some people where I start to collaborate, but I find out that we don't share the same values. I just stop, because it's not so much about papers. It's about building relationship and leveraging on complementary expertise. So there are times where I need something that will take me 6 months. Within 2 weeks, by talking to my collaborator, I get all the necessary information, and without that collaboration, it's not easy. So my advice is, first of all, have something you specialize in. When you have something to offer, a lot of people will want to work with you because they need what you have. You also need what they have. And then two, when you work together, you can go further rather than single one. Once you have something, people will come to you. And at the end of the day, you choose your collaboration carefully. Because if it's collaboration, it's just one way, they just want what you have, that's not a good collaboration. Yeah.
Thank you. And regarding your collaboration activities, did you see any change before and after this coronavirus pandemic?
Oh yes, it's changed significantly because we cannot go away at all. So it is difficult because most of the time I meet my collaborators. If I don't travel to their country, we meet at IEEE conference. But most of the time, everything is online. So it's a bit difficult, and the face-to-face is not the same as online most of the time. Although we're still collaborating, but the intensity is reduced because people have to take care. People are not working in their offices. Labs are closed and so on. So I'm excited that things are beginning to open up now. Then hopefully collaboration will start again in earnest. Yeah.
Thank you. So after your stay or your work in Singapore, what made you to decide to come back to the UK?
That's a good question, because I wasn't planning to move from Singapore at all. In fact, I was doing relatively well, and at my tenure there wasn't anything. I think 6 years ago, before I left, I was given the task to set up a college system. And the college is a place whereby you can conduct interdisciplinary type of research. Also, it's a place where you can mentor young people, the next generation. So I did that in Singapore. I started it, and it was successful. So when Durham University was looking for head of college, the end hunter, I was approached. I wasn't interested at first, but the more I went through the process of interview, the more I was drawn to Durham, and I decided that, after spending 20 years in a particular organization, it's high time to move out of my comfort zone to do something completely different. So that is why it was taking a step of faith out of the empire I've built in Singapore to come and start something from scratch. Yeah.
Regarding the college system and also the educational system in general, what is the main difference between the UK system and the system in Singapore?
Okay. So, about 25 years ago, the system in the UK is similar to the system in Singapore. But around 2020, in 2000, Singapore moved towards a US system. So if you can imagine the difference between, so Singapore's system is closer to the US system now, be it in terms of academic system, the educational system is completely different. So that's how I can put it. A contrasting, Singapore is more closer to US in terms of the educational system now compared to the UK system. Yeah. If that makes sense, yeah.
Sure, thank you. And are there any differences, for example, the students, for example, well, I think both are quite enthusiastic, but are there any difference, for example, one of them are more application-oriented, or are there any?
Yeah, the Singapore system is slightly different because of the local context. Some of the students, generally, they are quite good on paper, in terms of books, in terms of grades, but out of the box thinking is slightly different from the UK system, from what I've seen. And that is also one of the reasons why I decided to go into colleges system, is to unlock the potential instead of just focusing on textbook. It's like project driven. When you do something, you learn more than just hear about it. So the difference is because of the cultural background nature where people are reserved. Even when they know something, they don't want to voice it out easily. So that is different, although that is changing now. So in terms of academic quality, I would say the Singapore system is very good. You can look at every metrics. In fact, it's difficult to get into Singapore University compared to UK. So a lot of students who couldn't get into the local university, they come out to the UK. They've done well, but the number of intake is limited, and therefore they have to select. Yeah.
So are there anything you want to implement from the Singapore system to the UK system, for example?
Yes, I mean, the important thing is in the UK, in the Singapore system, we're looking at holistic education, looking at value, skill, and the whole notion of emotional intelligence. One of the things that I did last in Singapore is how do you actually equip students with skill set needed for the 21st century? And my goal in Durham now at Trevelyan College is we've started already to imbibe this sort of thing. In fact, the theme of my college is called Explore Without Limit, to unleash the potential of students. In doing so, they make mistakes, they correct themselves, they move forward. As you know, in Durham, the entrance requirement is quite high. So most students are intelligent academically, IQ, but EQ is not the same. So my goal in the college is to help students develop their EQ system so that by the time they finish, they will be employable and lifelong learning. Yeah.
So it must be a quite different job or a different task you have to.
Yeah, it's very different and it's quite challenging because in an old institution it's difficult to change and there are various roadblocks, but I'm the type who doesn't, if I believe in a mission, in my vision, I will pursue it with passion, and hopefully people will catch that passion, and in catching the passion, it will spread like flame and so on. Yeah. So it's challenging, but if it's so easy, everyone will be doing it. Because it's not so easy, do it. And I still like the fact that I'm still able to go to the physics and continue my research. Yeah.
So coming back to your research in Durham, was it very difficult to start up your research lab again, or can you manage to move most of the stuff from Singapore?
No, because if I was moving from one UK university to another, then all the grants that I've acquired, all the equipment, I can negotiate with the institution to transfer. But that's not possible because I was coming from Singapore and funded research in Singapore, you cannot take it overseas. So I basically have to start from scratch. To start with, I fortunate to have the Royal Society Wolfson Fellowship, which has allowed me to set up a microfocus BLS in Durham. The challenge is when I came, after I arrived in Durham, COVID started and a lot of things are delayed. So I have all the things to set up, but my lab is still being renovated. Hopefully once it's finished renovation now, I can quickly move in and get things sorted. I'm still quite excited at various possibilities because unlike when I was in Singapore starting from scratch, I'm not starting from scratch in the sense that I have a body of knowledge already. I know what I want to do and I can leverage on my collaboration to kickstart. I've already started some work already. So I expect in the next 2-3 years, something that will take me 10 years before I should be able to do that. Yeah. And I look forward to coming back to York to interact and collaborate and with colleagues. Yeah.
Of course you are. Always very welcome.
Yeah.
So you have 2 very big roles as a principal investigator in your lab and also the college principal. So how you can manage your time and effort?
Okay. Yeah, it takes discipline, and but at times it's like setting up a company. When you have your own company or when you are doing something you like, time doesn't, you find a way. So I've always maintained a work-life balance. I've been fortunate enough that I live in the college. So if I need to go home, within 5 minutes I'm at home. So that saves some time. So if I need to fulfill my role as father, as husband, I don't have issue with that. But the challenge is combining this end of college road with research or departmental, because you never know what will happen. On a daily basis, things can happen and you have to forget other things and sort that out. I find it quite interesting, but at the same time challenging. But having been in the academic system for many years, I know how to balance things up, and my kids have grown up a bit now. It's not that they need me as much as when they were growing up, when we were in Singapore, and I was able to spend more time with them here. So it's challenging, but I've tried to strike a balance. Family comes first for me, and I have to do whatever I do, because only when I am in the right frame of mind, I'm able to perform my job. And if I need to set aside time for family, I have system in place for people to deputize and help me run the college. Yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned about the Royal Society, awesome fellowship and some other big funding. So do you have any advice, especially for the early career researchers, to be successful, to secure funding?
So I guess for me, I'm still new in the UK system. I've not done much other than the Social Society, but I guess the key thing is when you are writing a proposal, you might have a very good idea, but you need to be able to convince your funding agency that if they give you, there is high chance of being successful. If you have a proposal in an area you know nothing about, nobody will be willing to invest in you. So you can have something that is new, but leverage on your expertise. At least that's what I can say so far. I don't know much about the UK. I'm still beginning to navigate. 2 years, 3 years from now, when I begin to know more about the UK system, I can advise. But in the Singapore system, the same thing holds. I started small, and slowly I begin to build. And when they give you money and you deliver, next time it's easy for you to get more money. So you become richer the more you spend time doing delivery. There's no point in promising something you can't deliver, because you can get that funding, but later you find out that you can't go back again because you don't have the track record. So my goal has always been, I don't want to promise something I can't deliver. I'm happy to take risks, but at least the risk is just such that some aspect of it will be delivered, and those aspects that are not delivered will lead to other projects. Yeah.
Thank you. And I do remember you came to York some years back as a distinguished lecturer from the IEEE Magnetic Society. So how do you find the IEEE or IEEE Magnetic Society to be helpful or useful for your career?
Yeah, I would say IEEE Magnetic Society make a huge difference in my career. And my first meeting, going to IEEE meeting, was in 1995 as a PhD student then. I was a student member. And I saw the advantage of being able to network with top researchers, listen to things, get new ideas, and people are willing to share. So I plugged in there, and I became a member. Full member, I think, was in 1999 or 2000, and a senior member, I think, many years later. I find it to be very, very, because of the opportunity it provided, either to meet other students, to be able to present your work, and to get feedback, because the feedback were quite useful. And also, I've been involved in the IEEE Society now, also in the leadership. I've been on ADCOM before, technical committee member. I've been also involved as program co-chair for 2 of the Intermark and the MMM conference, which I see it as a privilege and also a way of giving back. And I've been involved as program ProCom member for many conferences. So it's been part and parcel of me. In fact, that's the most significant society I've been involved in, and I'm still involved in the society in different form now. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for your involvement and leadership in the society. So I think we are now finishing close to the end of this interview. So are there any suggestion or any thing you want to highlight regarding your career, or do you have any advice to the other colleagues?
I would say that I'm grateful so far for my journey. It's not been easy, especially I don't see many people like me in the society. And I remember even in 95, 96 when I go, if you have 1,000 people and either you have 1 or 2 people who are like you, it's a bit different. But things are changing. Technology is leveraging now. I know that IEEE have various initiatives now which are helping. In those days, we didn't have that opportunity. So people who are starting out now, even though they have new challenges, a number of challenges I face, they won't face them because you can readily meet experts. Even at conferences now, they meet the expert. You can correspond with people easily now. And IEEE too now, they've been generous these days, providing funding for students for various things, magnetic schools. So I think I'm quite pleased with the direction of travel of IEEE Society. They're doing well, and where possible, they're reaching out to people of underrepresented and so on. And I think that has to continue. And I know that there are initiatives for women and so on. So I think those things will have to continue. I've benefited a lot, and I know that students are benefiting also now. Although things are changing in the sense that there are not many opportunities for career opportunity in terms of industry. As you know that in the 90s, if you have magnetic expertise, you are well sought after, but a lot of companies, they've consolidated now. But what I still find is, even for students I've trained, they are still relevant in industry. I mean, those who are at Hitachi and so on before, I found that they've gone to Apple and so on now, because Apple is also doing work in magnetics. So you can transfer your knowledge and so on. So my advice is, whatever you are doing, if it's a PhD, do it well. Whatever the project you embark on, even if you don't use that, the experience you learn will help you a lot. While collaborative work is good, individually you need to be equipped. Otherwise, you just be like managing projects, which is not so good. So I believe that the future of the people who are coming now, the early career, the future is very, very bright. There are a lot of encouragement for them. There are awards to spur people on. There are various opportunities. So just leverage on those opportunities. And yeah, but definitely the training in magnetism will help you a lot in various other aspects, even if you choose not to be in magnetism.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. It's a very good advice and helpful for the early career researchers. And overall, what is the most proud, what would be you think to be most proud of regarding your achievement or your career journey? As you said, you have very unique career journey, and especially we believe more people may follow. And what would be the biggest or most proud of achievement you have?
So my biggest, or what I look at, although there are various things I can point to, for example, getting the Trinity Fellowship and so on and so forth, I attribute the degree. But what is more important is when I see my students, the people I've trained, or who are doing well, some of them are doing better than I am, I feel that I've achieved something, because when they're with me, at times it's difficult because I have to just train them, and at times it's not easy when you are at the receiving end. But the good thing is most of them were still friends today, and each time I go to a country where I have my students who have graduated, they arrange for me to have dinner with them. Most of them are also having family now, so every year at the early in the year, I receive calls. During my birthday, I receive calls from my students. So this made me to be happy that it's worth the effort. And for the undergraduate students I've worked with or I've tutored, when I hear them, or some of them are going to set up companies, And they mentioned that, oh, it's as a result of my communication with them. I said, oh, I've not done anything, but if that helps, I feel it's quite fulfilling. But I would say that it's been an interesting journey. And I still have more in me to do more research, and I look forward to the next few years or so, fully in good health here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are close to the end of your interview. So are there any concluding remarks to the audience?
Yes, so I would just say that if you look at my background, somebody from Nigeria, and those days in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s, with little or no technology, I did my first degree in Nigeria. To be able to come out, go to Cambridge, work with people, and then journey through to where I am today. I just want to tell you, anything is possible. Even when you see roadblocks, that's not the end. When you see disappointment, because in my career I've seen disappointment, I've seen various things. But one thing that characterizes the way I do things is I never give up. I just continue. Because until you are dead, there's still hope. So I just want to encourage you to be passionate about what you do. No matter how small an area of it is in magnetism or whatever you're doing, learn it well so that people know you for it. If they know you for it, instead of being jack of all trades, master of none, learn something while you do things. Now, you never know where it's going to be useful. So, and for those who are watching, I wish you the very best. Go for it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think the audience may learn quite a lot from your very unique career. And I also learned quite a lot, and I enjoyed interviewing you. And thank you very much once again for your time and preparation. And I hope we will have some collaboration as well as all the best for your future career.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Julius, too, for recording this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.